Great. My session, so we've got a couple of half-hour sessions that were sort of semi-training oriented. So if you needed to justify this day out on continuous professional development, then you're getting some training. So there we go. And my session builds very nicely on what Edith's just been talking about, because it is going to be introducing you to practically how you can get involved in the testing and the sign-off part of developing in Koha. And topically for yesterday, I thought I'd title my slide presentation, "We Ain't Afraid of No Bugs," because we're probably all sick of that song after the last couple of weeks of listening to it. But actually, I am a little bit frightened of bugs. The first, particularly actually this sort. My first ever KohaCon, which was 4.5 years ago in Dublin, I actually asked what, looking back, probably was a dumb, naive question. I wasn't a software person and I didn't come from a libraries background. And I said, why do you call it Bugzilla when bugs are frightening? If you want people to come and play with Bugzilla and get involved in helping, then you call it something scary like Bugzilla and I'm going to run away. Now, I know that bugs is what every software developer calls a thing that's an issue or a development or an enhancement, but I still think it's slightly scary. So my presentation is about trying to get over some of that fear. Developers for bugs, they write things called patches. So perhaps thinking about patches is a better way of thinking about how we're fixing stuff. But I looked online patches. You can buy trousers with patches. These are from some online retailer. This photo's courtesy of them. But I don't really want a software program that looks like an old pair of jeans. Thank you very much. And then I don't really want an eye patch sort of solution to my software either. So I don't think patches is necessarily a helpful language either. What we really get excited about are enhancements, new features, brand new functionality, some of the stuff that Martin's been a whopping new module. I'm really going to get involved there. Shiny, sparkly, spangly stuff. We all love a bit of that. Too soon? The trouble with shiny, sparkly, spangly stuff is the very big things are actually quite difficult to get involved with and help with. You can get involved very much in the scoping, and potentially if your organization's involved in perhaps commissioning that work, get involved in the testing. But to get involved at the Koha community level in then practically working on that is a little bit more difficult, because that can end up being a huge thing to try and nosy your way into. And it's quite difficult as an introduction into Koha to sort of say, right, I'm going to sign off the next ILL module. Well, maybe start a little bit with something smaller. And in terms of getting involved, I think sweating the small stuff actually is fun. And my only involvement in signing off stuff in the Koha community is on tiny little things like fixing headings and fixing paragraphs being in the wrong place and buttons being the wrong size, that kind of thing. Because I can understand what's going to change, what the developer is trying to fix. I'm a non-librarian, so I don't understand cataloging or anything complicated like that. But I can understand seeing the difference between a button here and a button there. And so I can test that, and I can say, oh yeah, the developers put a patch in place that fixes that. I can sign that off. So for me, sweating the small stuff, getting involved at the small end is a really easy way in for me. The only way in for me. As a starting point, the Koha community website is a great place to go to get signposted to all the tools and all the knowledge that you need to get involved. There you can report bugs, you can submit ideas, so be at the start of the scoping process. Who'd written a fantastic report? Katie had written a fantastic report, so you can submit custom reports to the wiki and contribute in that way. You can get involved not in terms of development, but in things like contributing to the translation of the system for other languages. So if you have multiple languages and you're able to help with that, get involved with the translations team. They'd love you to join them. And another team that would love you to get involved, non-development, is the documentation team. So there are other non-developy ways of getting involved as well. And it's all there on the community website. But I'm really talking about signing off patches. So the bugs, the things that have gone wrong, and the patches, the things that are there to fix them, as part of the Koha process, what happens is a bug gets reported. You can report a bug. A developer then sees that bug report, and they say, well, I can write a patch that'll fix that. So they write a patch, and then it moves into a status in the tool that we're going to look at in a second called Bugzilla. It moves to a status called needs sign-off. And that's the really important bit that you can help with, because you can do the sign-off bit. And the more librarians we have signing stuff off, the more likely the community is to accept the fix and accept that it's been properly looked at by proper people who know what they're talking about, rather than co-developers. Co-developers have to, around the world, do help each other and do sign off each other's patches. They have to, otherwise stuff just wouldn't move forward. But the more we have librarians getting involved and signing stuff off, the better. That's Bugzilla. No, it's not. It's the Koha dashboard. The Koha dashboard monitors the progress of all the bugs in the Koha community and says what needs sign off. The stage after, once it's been signed off, it goes then into a quality assurance stage. So then you do get very clever people checking that the code doesn't break other stuff, for example, or that doesn't create future regressions. I'm looking to Martin to nod when I use big words like that. It's got more syllables in than I normally use. And then it also has a status called needs documentation, because it's no good just putting loads of new things in and not telling people how to use the new things. So the documentation needs to be updated as well. And then it goes into other stages of pushed into previous releases and that kind of thing. Bugzilla, the scary tool that I'm scared of, this is the place where we're going to go in a second and actually see how it works. This is where the bug gets filed in the first place, where it gets reported, and then where the developers have a way of applying the patch, and we have a way of interacting with Bugzilla to comment on it and also to test it using something scary called the sandbox. Actually, that's childhood. I should be not scared of the sandbox. I'm slightly scared of sandboxes in this context. But I'm going to demystify and make it not scary. That's the sandbox area. We'll come into it in a second. If you're a pro, then there is another thing called the Koha testing Docker. That's a different testing environment. Edith, did you use the Koha testing Docker? No. No. We'll upgrade you. The Koha testing Docker, certain things, it's difficult to make the sandboxes sufficiently robust in order to test certain really deep functionality, or get behind the scenes. If you need to test how tables are looking or anything like that, then you need to have a Koha testing Docker. I don't know how that works. So if we're not afraid of any bugs, let's have a go and see how it goes. I'm going to sit down just so I've got a chance to operate this smoothly. So Bugzilla is the place to go if you want to start getting involved. And that's where you'll find things that are ready to be signed off. Bugzilla itself, I personally don't find, I mean, I don't use it every day. The developers, I think, are much more conversant with it and find it easy to navigate. The search, I can never find what I'm looking for in the search. So I already get a little bit off-put by that. But there are a couple of ways of searching for bugs that find an easier way into the Bugzilla environment. And the first is actually by going to that dashboard. And the dashboard will give you an easy link into a list of all the bugs that need sign-off. So that's the stage that we're interested in, those that need a librarian to go and have a look at. And that simple link there will take you to a great long list, in this case of 140 odd, bugs that are in that needs sign-off status. Now, you could look down the list and see, oh, I'm an acquisitions librarian. I can go and look at the ones that say acquisitions, and you can maybe that be a route in. Or you can get to know which of the developers write things that you might be able to sign off. And I happen to know that Owen Leonard, who's over in the States, he writes patches for lots of the simple stuff, the user interface stuff, the accessibility related stuff. And so I go straight to Owen's little list and I click through his bugs to see if there's some stuff there I can sign off. Obviously, you can also dive into the PTFS Europe developers and choose theirs and take a look through theirs. So that's a bit of an easy way into seeing what needs sign off and what you can have a look at. The other thing that you can do is I've actually set up a little search that gets stored in my login profile. And it's looking for things that are basic. There's a status or a keyword that they use, the developers use, academy, against bugs that are easy, entry level. And so if you just do KW for keyword and colon academy in the search bar, then that's going to bring up any bugs that have the keyword academy against them. Now, that's a list of all of them, whatever status they're in. So some of these are actually new ones that you could have a go at fixing. So if you really want to go to the next stage and start to write code, then Academy bugs is where to start. But also you can scroll down and find the needs sign-off ones, which will be somewhere in this list, as another way. But I actually set up a specific search, and I included two terms in my keywords, either sandbox or academy. And a sandbox is a brand new keyword that Martin put on the system yesterday at my request. Because what I've found when I've been looking through the bugs to try and find ones to sign off is not all of them are able to be signed off on a sandbox. Some of them require a Koha testing Docker. And there's no easy way of knowing which ones are which. So by adding that keyword, the developers can flag up, these are ones that can be signed off on the sandbox. And so I know, oh, I can potentially sign those off. So I've got my little search list, which says any bugs that have need sign off and are academy bugs and are sandbox sign offable, those are the ones that I can have a look at. And that gives me a nice little tight list of entry level stuff, which is great. So what do I do next? Well, I click into the bugs and have a look at what they are. And hopefully the developer has written a nice little test plan for me to be able to start understanding what I'm supposed to do. So if I go and look at one of the ones that Owen has very nicely set me up with, this is a bug called sort database column names alphabetical on automatic item modification page. No idea what that means. But helpfully, there's a description of where the issue is and what the issue is. You probably can't see that, so I'll probably make the screen bigger. Is that more helpful? So it's telling me where it is. It's in cataloging, automatic item modifications by age. And when adding or editing a rule, there are several drop-downs for selecting which column in the items or biblio items table to use. And these lists are currently not in alphabetical order, which isn't very helpful. So this patch is to sort that out and change those lists into alphabetical order. So what Owen has nicely done, and he's brilliant at test plans, and Martin's team are also great at test plans, he's written a really helpful test plan to tell me exactly what I have to do stage by stage to test this bug. But where do I test it? Do I do it on my Koha? But what do I do? No, you start a sandbox. And a sandbox is a play area for you. It's a clean installation of Koha, the very latest code base of Koha, and it's a place that allows you to apply just the patch that relates to this bug and then test it. So where do I find the sandboxes? Well, if you actually just search sandbox Koha, you'll come to a nice page on the wiki which tells you all about sandboxes and says where they are. And there are 3 of the support companies that support the sandboxes, BibLibra, Bywater Solutions, and PTFS Europe. We all have separate installations of sandbox servers identical, so they work in exactly the same way, and you can choose whichever you fancy. So if you want to be a bit French one day, you can go to the BibLibra sandbox and use theirs. If you want to be all stateside, then go to the Bywater Solution ones. They're exactly the same. When you go to those sandboxes, and this is the PTFS Europe sandbox area, the thing that you need to do there is create a new sandbox. So you need to create your own sandbox, and that's what you're going to use to test this particular bug. So I hit the create button, you put your name in, you put your email address in, and then you give your sandbox a name. I'm going to call this one Testing Rocks, because it really does. But it doesn't have enough letters to allow me to do that. So Testing Rock is what we're going to do this afternoon. There's some extra stuff that you could here at this stage apply that bug number. So bug number 35198 is the bug that we're testing. And at this stage, when setting up my sandbox, it does give me the option to apply that bug number there. I don't necessarily always do that, because I like to look at the scenario before and then apply the bug and then the fix and then look at it after, because then I'm properly testing what it did before, was it wrong, and what I applied a patch, and then I can see what it's changed. So I don't always do that, and I'm not going to in this case. And then you don't have to enter a description or notes. But if you want to let people know that this is my area hands off, then you can put some note in there like that as well. The only thing you do have to do is answer this very complicated question, which was the world's first open source ILS, and it was Koha, funnily enough. That's just to stop robots, I think, so that starting loads of sandboxes. And then you hit submit, and it starts to provision. Now, in the background, the clever people, there's little minions in the back that are just digging around and making a new Koha for you while you wait. And then basically, it's automatically installing a brand new safe little Koha for you. Now, that takes a few minutes. So this is the tea break time. You go, not now. You go and have a cup of tea while it's doing this. So in Blue Peter style, I got one ready earlier for us to use. This is my testing is fun one instead. And you can see it's given me links to both the staff side and to the OPAC. So sometimes your bug is fixing something that's in the OPAC, and sometimes it's on the staff side. And you can log into both areas, or look at both areas and log into both areas. And then under the actions list, this is where you apply the patch. So I didn't already apply a patch. There would be a bug number there if I'd applied a patch already. I didn't apply one, so that's where I'll be able to apply it in a minute when I've looked at what the problem is. So instead, I know that my 35198 is stuff in the staff side because it's in cataloging. So I'm going to go into the staff side. It's going to bring up a familiar login box. Clue, Koha is the very complicated username and password. Is that written down anywhere? On the wiki page, so you do have to remember. I struggle with passwords. You log in. I need to go to cataloging, it says. I'll make that bigger as well. And I think it gave me a useful tip here. Maybe not. Sometimes it tells you if there's a system preference you need to check is turned on. Because sometimes you're looking for this, I can't see this damn thing, and it's because you need to enable a system preference that you never use, so why would you know to turn that on? So it says, go to cataloging and item modifications by age. So presumably, somewhere on here, there it is, item modifications by age. And it then says, add rules, and then add a rule. So add rules, and then add a rule. And it's telling me that these drop-down boxes aren't in alphabetical order. No, they're not. Items date, and then items r, and then items date. So they're not in alphabetical order. And then this one, also deeply unalphabetical. So what we're going to do now is see whether Owen's patch fixes that. 35198. So I'm going to go back to my sandbox, this one here, and I'm going to, this is where I get slightly scared of the sandboxes. I think I'm going to apply it to somebody else's testing sandbox. So I do double check there that I'm using my own. U5198. And I submit. It goes away and it takes Owen's code and it applies it onto that installation of Koha only on that installation of Koha. It tells me that it's done it. I never understand that wording, but it apparently tells me that it's done it. So I need to go back here and I need to refresh the page because obviously I've just applied something new. I'm going to add rule and then I'm going to see if these moment of truth. Ooh, that looks nicely alphabetical. Oh, how many have I got to check? So I've got to check the age field, the conditions, and the substitutions drop-downs to confirm that the choices are listed alphabetical. Test plan, brilliant. Tells me exactly what to do. So I'll go back. Substitutions, also very, very beautifully alphabetical list. I love it. It then says, and this is scaring me slightly because I don't even know what I'm doing here in terms of the actual process as a librarian. It wants me to fill in the form and save the rule. So, I don't know, age in days 2, an age field, date last borrowed. This might not make any sense. Biblia number equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Barcode equals 1, 2, 3, 4, or 2, 1, 3, 4. Will that work? Does anyone know? We'll see. Save. Hurrah, it's saved. What does it tell me to do next? Go back and edit the rule you've created and check that the drop-downs are still correct and alphabetical. We're not testing what I'm putting in. We're not testing whether the form works. We're simply testing whether those lists are alphabetical. That's all he wants me to test. So I edit the rule and I check that these are still alphabetical, and bingo, they are very much still alphabetical. So I think a round of applause for Owen for that patch. It's a brilliant patch, but he's actually not going to be satisfied with a round of applause, friend's house near Euston in London. He wants me to sign it off. That's the purpose of me doing this. So how do I do that? Well, I go back to the lovely sandbox, and another of the actions that I can do is I can actually sign off the patch. So that's really, I'm going to refresh the page just to show you that it tells me that bug number is the one I'm testing, and that's the bug that I'm going to be signing off when I hit this sign off button. So I'm going to hit sign off patch, and it's saying, I'm Andrew Auld. This is the bug number. How many patches am I signing off? Ooh, this bit always scares me slightly. So I go back to Bugzilla and scroll back up, and it's in here where it tells me how many patches there are, and there's only one. If there are multiple patches for that particular bug, then there'll be a list of them in there. And so you just count them up and you say, I'm signing off 3 or 1. And I'm only signing 1 off on this occasion. So I just type 1 in here. I have to remember the answer to that difficult question again, Koha, and I have to submit that. And it's helpful note, the sign-off tool doesn't automatically set the status of the community bug to sign off, so please go into Bugzilla and do that as well. So it does lots of things automatically, but the thing that it doesn't do automatically is actually update this bug status here from assigned to me. Owen was protecting them for this training session. I'll assign them to you so nobody else can see them. And I need to change that to signed off. So I'm going to do that somewhere here. Change the status to signed off. And I get to make a comment at this point. And it's always good to pat the developers on the back because they do a great job. So I say, brilliant job. Owen, works perfectly. An unnecessary exclamation mark always helps. And I change it to signed off, and I hit save changes. Ooh, mid-air collision, Martin. What does that mean? Oh no, don't do that. Is that you? I'm going to submit my changes anyway. We've damn well signed this off. So what that's going to say down here is that in the PTFS Europe sandboxes, which is where we were, this was the test plan, and it was signed off by me, and there was a little comment by me. So that's recorded the correspondence in the Bugzilla. So Owen will see that. He'll get an email letting him know just how terrific he is. And that bug has now progressed a stage on in Koha world. And hopefully it'll go into QA next, and then it'll get into the next release. And it's really as simple as that. There are a couple of other bugs that I'm going to give you the number of, in case there's anyone that's really keen and wants to have a go. So 35206 and 35205 are another couple of really straightforward bugs that Owen's flagged up to me. And Martin, what's that one that you have? Oh, well, I'll find that in a minute because it's in my little list. This one here. This one here. Cookie consent preference should hint that there's HTML content blocks available for customization. That one, 34791, is a really straightforward one to take a look at. What about Matt's sort 1 and sort 2 field? Do you know about that one? Slightly more involved, so if you're feeling brave, 19316. But just because the developers are brilliant, sometimes they're not perfectly brilliant, and you might not want to sign it off. So what happens if you don't want to sign the bug off? You're not actually totally satisfied. Do you run away screaming and say, I'm not getting involved in this? No, give some feedback. Be helpful. Say, well, it works almost, but I don't think it quite works, and this is why. They'd really love to know that. Like the moving the button into the right place earlier, that example that Edith gave. The developers are not librarians, so they don't always know the perfect fix, whereas you probably do. So this one here, I've already tested this one a little bit, 35206. I'm not going to finish the process, but what I am going to do is just show you what I mean. So let's have a quick look at the test plan. It does something with Bootstrap, no idea what that means. To the add button on the curbside administration page in the curbside pickup section, this makes it consistent with the markup of similar buttons in the interface and makes it slightly smaller so that it fits better in the form. Sounds good. Sounds like a thing that I could check. To test, apply the patch and make sure the curbside pickup preference is enabled. So that's a little hint to go into administration and check that first. And there's the test plan. So let's go and quickly have a look at what it looks like before. I can stay using the same sandbox. I wouldn't always recommend this. If you're testing a load of acquisitions bugs and you keep applying patches to the same test sandbox, there is a possibility that the code might actually not interface well with itself and start a new sandbox if you're testing loads of stuff at once. But if you're testing stuff that's wildly in different parts of Koha, then don't worry too much about it. And if it breaks, you can just start a new one anyway and not worry about it. I'm going to go to, first of all, turn on that systems preference. Curbside. And I'm going to enable that. No, do we spell curb with a K? Yeah, Americanized probably. We're going to save that. And then what do we have to do next? We have to, which one was it, this one? Go to administration, curbside pickups, and fill out the form, including the new slot fields in the curbside pickup hours section. Right, okay. Go to the, in administration, curbside pickups is going to be somewhere on the page. There we go, curbside pickups, because I've enabled the system preference. And it wants me to, oh, there's my big add button. So Owen's saying that button looks unnecessarily large or out of kilter large in conjunction with the rest of the user interface. So his fix is to change the size of that. So 35206. So I'm going to apply the bug, actions, apply 35206, 206, and submit. Done. And now I go back and I refresh this page. Oh, it's smaller. So it's more in kilter with the user interface. Now, I wasn't totally happy that I was going to sign this off. And the reason I wasn't totally happy, and it's not so obvious on this great big screen, but on the screen in front of me, the add font size, this is really big. The add font size is now smaller than the Sunday font size. So I think the add font size is out of kilter small. So I'm going to give a little bit of feedback to Erin and say, you've made the button smaller, but could you make the text back bigger again slightly to be completely in kilter with the rest of the UI? I'm, however, not going to give him that feedback because I'm going to let somebody else decide whether they want to give that feedback. But instead, I'm going to show you where you would give that feedback. And it's back in the bug, in Bugzilla. And you just simply add a comment and say, I love the button, but I just think the text should be slightly bigger in the button. Can you do that too, please? So that's how to give a little bit of feedback to the developer. They'll go away and potentially do that, or they might come back and say, don't be a numpty, put your glasses on, you need reading glasses. They're unlikely to say that because they're really friendly and lovely. I'm going to stop at that point and leave you with those bug numbers that I've already told you about. And you can hopefully now, with confidence, go forth and sign off scary bugs in Koha. I hope that's helped.